This is Shelley Craft coming to you live on SNNLive. We're coming to you from the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium 2017 here in Vancouver. I have Deb Randhawa from Fission Uranium Corp. It's a publicly traded company. I'm going to give you two symbols. FCU on the Toronto Stock Exchange, FCUUF in the U.S. on the OTC. Welcome back to SNNLive.
Well, thank you for having me again.
It's good to have you. Let's get started with a brief overview on Fission, and then we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, Fission is a uranium explorer, and we are 100% focused on one project in Saskatchewan, in the middle of Canada, and it's a very high-grade, shallow uranium asset that we hope to keep moving forward. We're well-funded, about $50 million in the bank, owned 20% by the Chinese utility CGN, and it seems like we keep finding more uranium.
Good point. Finding more uranium in this market. Let's talk about the uranium market because the price has fluctuated, been pressure on the price. Tell our audience, if you would, what's going on in uranium.
Well, you're looking as investors for contrarian plays, meaning as someone would say, you're a contrarian or you're a victim. And another smart Sprott man named Eric says, do the math. And so when you keep having more and more reactors being built and less supply, that means eventually that overhang leaves and the prices jump. If investors remember back in 2004 and 5, uranium was around $7, $8. And even then we kept saying these utilities are not buying for some reason. Well, they didn't contract uranium. They instead of buying it at $7 or $10, they contracted all the way up to $140. So, but back then, we had 3 mines coming online, including Cigar Lake, and we had 22 reactors being built. Today, we have 60 reactors being built, but 0 mines coming on. So, despite what the average investor thinks, there's a lot of nuclear plants being built as we speak. In fact, it's a 25-year high. And that's pretty amazing when you think about it. So we see an amazing contrarian play happening in the price of uranium, and the best way to play it, obviously, is to pick 3-4 companies. And we think being cashed up with no debt and our deposits in the best place in the world, the grades are 50 times higher world average, and it's very close to surface, which makes it a lot easier to mine cost-wise and drilling-wise.
And I kind of feel that by having a Chinese partner, you're kind of like offtake is kind of built in, number one. Number two, you're in a safe jurisdiction as compared to other jurisdictions. So let's focus a little bit on those 2 items.
Sure. CGN is not only going to be the largest user of uranium in the next few years, they're building more reactors than anybody else themselves. So they're an end user, they're a financing partner, but also miners. They're mining as we speak in Namibia, an open pit project, so they've got the expertise. They could become a mining partner, they're a financial partner now, and could use the offtake. So they're really the ideal partner. As I tell people, they're the mothership of the industry because they're well-financed and etc. And they're very, very smart. And before they invested in us, they spent over $2 million US simply doing due diligence on deposits around the world.
What's your background?
My background is mostly financial. I have an MBA, but I'm a contrarian at heart. And so I think whenever I see opportunities like this, when stocks run, I don't go into them. I tend to buy stuff that, the math makes sense. And it's not about emotion. It's not about conspiracy theories. It's about the math.
Where else is there going to be pressure on the price of uranium where's that going to come from as well?
Well, presently it comes from 3 sources. The Department of Energy consistently leaks it out to pay for various things. They have no other asset, and so they do that. They're one cause. Number 2 is what they call underfeeding, and the third is the Japanese leaking back out. Between those 3, we've had about 40 million pounds a year coming back in what they call secondary or etc. And so we need 180 million pounds a year. We produce 160. The other 20 comes from secondary sources, but there's twice as that much now. However, you're seeing Japan reactors come back online, so you'll see less of that. The other thing is you've got underfeeding costs money to do. And so that's about $40. So yeah, I think you're going to see less and less of that underfeeding coming back into the market. So, it's just right now, if utilities were contracting, U.S. utilities especially were contracting like the Asians normally, which would be 3, 5, 10 years out, uranium would have to be 60, 70. The average cost to build a mine around the world, uranium mine, is around $65. So no matter how much you produce it, you can't make it at $25. So as Dirk Rule often says, you either price has to go up or we have to turn our power off. I mean, 20% of our power in the United States comes from nuclear plants, 20%. And right now, you're producing only like 4% of what you need. So most of what you're importing from countries like Russia. So it is a great opportunity, I think, for investors. Like I think a couple of years ago, iron ore had the same scenario, no production, demand going up, and that's the same thing we have right now in uranium.
So how do you handle the argument? Well, coal production's going up in the U.S., and you've got solar energy, you've got wind energy, and they're literally selling it to the grid. How do you combat that?
Well, first of all, nuclear power is the only carbon-free baseload power in the world, meaning at once, if you need a lot of power, all of us go home at the same time, we need all the power between 5 and 7. You can't do that with solar. You can't do that with wind. Actually, I hate to break a lot of people's hearts, renewables are actually going down simply because the honeymoon is over where people thought they could produce those without tax help and et cetera. So they're simply not cost effective for the most part unless they're heavily subsidized by other people. And coal, it's dirty. And yes, people are going to continue to use it. Remember, we're only talking about 20% of the mix, not 100%. We're only talking, and that's where Rick Perry has said, you cannot discuss climate change. You cannot discuss the environment without nuclear power.
Now, these countries that are developing nations have to go nuclear to begin with because they don't have the money to build old, antiquated, ridiculous infrastructure anyway. Right. So what do you see as the future of more reactors being built across the planet, like, for instance, India? Well,
I think, first of all, to build an argument for nuclear power, you need to build it for energy. When they're saying by 2030, 150% more energy. So we're going to have to get it from somewhere. And people do want cleaner energy. You can see it if you go to Beijing, they want clean energy. So they need nuclear power for 2 reasons. You need energy, and 2, people want clean energy. And so when you got people, the head of the EPA, like sort of the energy, Rick Perry, he says we've got to have it. And so it really does start with America. And if America makes a commitment for clean energy through nuclear power, it helps everybody.
Let's get your website out there for more information.
Ours is FissionUranium.com.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dev Randhawa, Fission Uranium Corp. It's a publicly traded company. I'm going to give you 2 symbols. FCU on the Toronto Stock Exchange, FCUUF on the OTC in the U.S. I'm Shelley Krapp. This is SNNLive. We're coming to you live from the Sprott Natural Resource Symposium 2017 in Vancouver. Dev, always good to see you.
Thank you for having me back, Shelley. Thank you.
My pleasure.